Hello, my name is Pastor Kathy Kollar. I'm the pastor of Pleasant Valley Lutheran Church near Malabar Farm State Park and St. Paul Lutheran Church in Lucas, Ohio. Greetings. And why is my thing doing this? I don't know. Okay, well, it's still working, I think, so I'll just keep going. We are reading through the Bible with commentary, and we are in the book of Second Chronicles, which parallels Kings quite a bit. There's a lot of things that are in Chronicles that we also read when we read through Kings. And like Kings and Samuel, Chronicles was originally written as one book, and when it got translated from ancient Hebrew into ancient Greek, it became two scrolls and two books. So we're up to chapter 3 of Second Chronicles, and we have mentioned that Chronicles is concerned with worship, with proper worship, and with the temple, and was written probably either while they were in exile in Babylon or after they had returned from exile in Babylon as they're building a new temple. This is a remembrance of the original amazing first temple by Solomon, and just the idea of the establishment of worship and how important worship is. So they say David established the temple. He made the plans, he gathered the materials, and then his son Solomon actually did the building, which is what we are up to today with chapter 3. Solomon began to build the house of the Lord in Jerusalem on Mount Moriah, where the Lord had appeared to his father David, at the place that David had designated on the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. So a threshing floor is a big open area, big enough that an animal could drag a sledge in circles and figure eights. So it's not massive, but it's also not little teeny tiny either. It's a fairly large, open, flat area that would have maybe a lip around the edge, and so you put the grain there, and you take an animal and you drag this sledge that's made out of wood, usually, with little sharp pieces of rock and things on the bottom. So you put some weight on the top and you drag it around so it breaks the heads of the grain free from the stalks. And then the wind blows away the chaff. They use a pitchfork to throw it up in the air, and the wind blows the chaff away and the grain gets gathered up and taken into whatever you're going to take it into. So that's a threshing floor. Verse 2, he began to build on the 2nd day of the 2nd month of the 4th year of his reign. These are Solomon's measurements for building the house of God. The length in cubits of the old standard was 60 cubits, and the width 20 cubits. Generally speaking, a cubit's like the length of a man's forearm, and it's loosely about 1.5 feet, although this refers to the old standard and the new standard, so that's variable. So if it's about 60 by 20 cubits, then that would be about 90 by 30 feet, perhaps, possibly. The vestibule in front of the nave of the house was 20 cubits long across the width of the house, and its height was 120 cubits. He overlaid it on the inside with pure gold. The nave he lined with cypress, covered it with fine gold, and made palms and chains on it. He adorned the house with settings of precious stones. The gold was gold from Parvaim, so he lined the house with gold, its beams, its thresholds, its walls, and its doors, and he carved cherubim on the walls. So the house is built with stone at the bottom, wood at the top, but the entire thing on the inside is completely covered with gold. Verse 8, he made the most holy place. Its length corresponding to the width of the house was 20 cubits, and its width was 20 cubits. He overlaid it with 600 talents of fine gold. The weight of the nails was 50 shekels of gold. He overlaid the upper chambers with gold. Verse 10, in the most holy place he made 2 carved cherubim and overlaid them with gold. The wings of the cherubim together extended 20 cubits. One wing of the one, 5 cubits long, touched the wall of the house, and its other wing, 5 cubits long, touched the wing of the other cherub. And of this cherub, one wing, 5 cubits long, touched the wall of the house, and the other wing, also 5 cubits long, was joined to the wing of the first cherub. The wings of these cherubim So bim makes it plural, cherub. Two, you don't say two cherubs, you say two cherubim, extended 20 cubits. The cherubim stood on their feet facing the nave. So in the inside place, where the most holy place, where only the Ark of the Covenant will be, and the priests don't even go in there because it's so holy, two huge angels, cherubim, with wings that spread out, and from one end to the other, 20 feet, maybe 30 feet total, so 10 cubits each, 20 cubits total, maybe 30 feet across, so maybe 15 feet across from side to side for each one of these angels that are standing over where is going to be the Ark of the Covenant. Where was I? Verse 14. And Solomon made the curtain of blue and purple and crimson fabrics and fine linen and worked cherubim into it. So on the inside it's completely covered with gold, but there's also cloth, and the cloth is blue and purple and red and beautiful with lots of ornate carvings and embroideries. Verse 15, in front of the house he made 2 pillars, 35 cubits high, with a capital of 5 cubits on the top of each. He made encircling chains and put them on the tops of the pillars. He made 100 pomegranates and put them on the chains. He set up the pillars in front of the temple, one on the right, the other on the left. The one on the right he called Jachin, the one on the left Boaz. And the footnote says that Jachin may mean he prepares or he establishes, while Boaz may mean in him the Lord is strength. So super tall, if they're 35 cubits plus the top 40 cubits, so about 60 feet tall, very tall, heavy bronze pillars in front of the temple. Chapter 4. He made an altar of bronze, 20 cubits long, 20 cubits wide, and 10 cubits high. Then he made the molten sea. It was round, 10 cubits from rim to rim, and 5 cubits high. A line of 30 cubits would encircle it completely. Under it were panels all around, each of 10 cubits, surrounding the sea. There were 2 rows of panels cast when it was cast. It stood on 12 oxen, 3 facing north, 3 facing west, 3 facing south, and 3 facing east. The sea was set on them. So the sea is like a huge bathtub. It's a big source of water that the priests can use for purification, that they can go there, and there's this massive, huge bronze. It's not a swimming pool, but it's a very large, round pool to hold water. And underneath this huge pool, there are bronze oxen looking 3 in each direction with their hindquarters in, looking outward, holding this thing up, which is just so cool to think of what that would look like. The hindquarters of each were toward the inside. Verse 5, its thickness was a handbreadth. Its rim was made like the rim of a cup, like the flower of a lily. It held 3,000 baths. And all my footnote says is that it's a measure of volume, so we don't know, is that 3,000 gallons, 3,000 liters? It's 3,000 baths. But a handbreadth, so from the thickness, and it's probably a man's hand rather than mine, but the idea is that the brass, it's not just this little thin thing, it's this heavy, thick brass that is now holding this large amount of water. Verse 6, he also made 10 basins in which to wash, and set 5 on the right side and 5 on the left. In these they were to rinse what was used for the burnt offering. The sea was for the priests to wash in. Verse 7, so a source of water that they could be clean. The cleanliness was a very important part of being the temple. They could take some of the water out and use it to wash vessels, but they could also use the water in the sea to wash themselves. Verse 7, he made 10 golden lampstands as prescribed, and set them in the temple, 5 on the south side and 5 on the north. He also made 10 tables and placed them in the temple, 5 on the right and 5 on the left. He made 100 basins of gold. He made the court of the priests and the great court and the doors for the court. He overlaid their doors with bronze. He set the sea at the southeast corner of the house. Verse 11, And Huram made the pots, the shovels, and the basins. Thus Huram finished the work that he did for King Solomon on the house of God. The 2 pillars, the bowls, and the 2 capitals on top of the pillars, and the 2 lattice works to cover the 2 bowls of the capitals that were on top of the pillars. The 400 pomegranates for the 2 lattice works, 2 rows of pomegranates for each lattice work to cover the 2 bowls of the capitals that were on the pillars. He made the stands, the basins on the stands, the 1 sea, the 12 oxen underneath it, the pots, the shovels, the forks, and all the equipment for these. Huram-Abi made of burnished bronze for King Solomon for the house of the Lord. In the plain of the Jordan the king cast them in the clay ground between Succoth and Zeradah. Solomon made all these things in great quantities, so that the weight of the bronze was not determined. So we did hear this before when we were reading through Kings. A lot of this was the same kind of ground and the same coverage. Chronicles is actually a little less detailed because they're less concerned about the building itself and more concerned about the worship that happens inside of it. But they still talk about the building. And part of the idea of the building is you have the Ark of the Covenant, and they built the tabernacle, the tent for the Ark of Covenant. And in a very similar way, they describe the building of the altar and all of the things for having this tent that they could go and meet God and do sacrifices. And now we're transferring from the tent to the house, to the temple. And so in a very similar way, they are listing all of the things that were used to build and what it was looked like and how it was built. And there's actually less detail here, I would say, than what we read in Kings. But there's still all these 2 huge pillars, and at the top there's a lattice work of chains and little pom-poms, pomegranates that are hanging down, and it's very elaborate. Verse 19, so Solomon made all the things that were in the house of God, the golden altar, the tables for the bread of the presence, the lampstands and their lamps of pure gold to burn before the inner sanctuary as prescribed, the flowers, the lamps, and the tongs of purest gold, the snuffers, basins, ladles, and firepans of pure gold. As for the entrance to the temple, the inner doors to the most holy place, and the doors of the nave of the temple were gold. I'm going to read just a tiny bit of chapter 5. Chapter 5, thus all the work that Solomon did for the house of the Lord was finished. Solomon brought in the things that his father David had dedicated, and stored the silver, the gold, and all the vessels in the treasuries of the house of God. So tomorrow we will hear about them bringing the ark to the temple and dedicating the temple. But for right now, only 2 chapters to say, okay, Solomon built it. A little bit shorter, as we mentioned, than what we heard in Kings, but still an idea of just how magnificent, how big, completely covered with gold and jewels and artwork, and just magnificent. And as they built the second temple, when they came back from captivity, and we'll read about that in Nehemiah or Ezra, then they'll be like, oh, it's nothing like the first one. But this is a history, a chronicle that reminds the Israelites where they came from and connects them with the past, connects their temple with the tabernacle, connects David and Solomon with Moses, and it kind of just forms all of this connection. And of course, it is good for us to remember the past. It is good for us to have a connection to the people that we came from. Some people don't have that, and some people have too much of that. But the stories that we tell about our families and about our history as a church, the stories that my church tells about the people that came and established the church and that have run the church, and within living memory, what those people did, are part of the history of our church and part of our connection to the past. So it's always good to be connected to your past and your history, if there's any way that you can have any of that. So now may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord look at you with favor and give you peace. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Go in peace. Like, subscribe, comment. We'll see you next time. Thanks for being here.